Hey everybody, Old Guy Jamming here. This video is in response to Robert Baker's video some time ago about amps that beginners should avoid, and not to dog on Baker. He's a great guy, super talented. I do wish he would use some scrunchies instead of always, with the hair. But he shreds, he's great. He's the real deal, He's a performing musician, and I like that. But I don't want to steer anybody away from stuff. I want new players to experience everything you can get your hands on and then make some good choices. But to avoid trying something just because it's complicated or expensive or this, that, or the other, I think is misdirection. So I want to throw my hat in the ring with my top three choices, 3.5 choices for great amps for beginning guitarists. Now, to give you some perspective, I'm just going to tell you about the amps I've owned, and not to brag by any means. A lot of people have owned a lot of gear. I'm not trying to say it makes me a big deal by any means, but it will allow you to, it does speak to my experience that I've had with amps, and many of them I've actually owned. It's not just I brought them home to try them, but I'll tell you when that's the case as well. Okay, and then we'll get down to the top three. So I made some notes. Way back in the day, I had a Galen Kruger, a GK 250RL, little tiny head, and then with a 212 cab, and boy, I thought I was the stuff. And it was great. It had a great tone for the day, and it had chorus, 2-channel, clean with a chorus, and a reverb, digital effects, and it sounded great. But I abused it. I hooked it up to improper cab impedances, and this just bad stuff went down. That was back in the day when Skips in Sacramento had a hole-in-the-wall repair shop. Just a greasy guy back in there. And it was under warranty, and he fixed it, but he said, I know you blew this up, so I'm not going to give it to you. How much money do you have? And, I'm 18 or something. Gosh, I don't know, I got 30 bucks. All right, well, give me that. Guy's got to eat. Anyway, the problem with solid state amps is the harder you drive them, the hotter they get, and in a transistor, heat equates to resistance, and your current goes down, and you lose the meatiness of your tone. Now, that's just the way transistors work. Better heat sinks, fans, all that sort of stuff can aid in that loss. And over time, just like with the tube, you do need to replace your transistors over time as well. Not as often as you do a tube, but the big drawback is when a transistor gets hot, current goes down. And tube amps, when they get hot, current goes up, and they just sound, they're in their wheelhouse when they're nice and warm and hot. Anyway, I've owned a GK. I did not own the PRS MT15, but I put it up against the EVH LBX2 and kept the LBX2. I've owned several Vox Valvetronics amps, big 212 ones, as well as the new 112. I believe it's 112, it might be 110, but they're new little combo, and that's a delightful one. I did own the Boss Katana 100, and I like the 50 as well, but it didn't have an effects loop. Boss Katana 100 has the effects loop, and I owned that for a while, and then I sold it. Line 6, Flex Tone. That's going way back. About the only Line 6 I ever liked was the Flex Tone. It was decent. It was really good. The Spiders, I've had a few Spiders, and boy, I was lucky to get rid of them because I just don't get it. You switch around to different effects, the volume jumps all over the place. I've never had a Spider that I liked. Let's see what else. Peavey, I've had some Peaveys. The Bandit, way back when, a monster loud amp. The Classic 30, I have owned. The Valve King, I have not owned, but I had it for 30 days and didn't like it. I've owned the 6505 Mini Head. It's a really good high gain amp, but I prefer the EVH. I've owned an HK Tube Meister 30. I tried the 18 and then purchased the 30 and then ended up selling it because I just couldn't get rid of some of the fizz factor, the hissy fizz factor that's in a Tube Meister or an HK. But a lot of people like them, but the Tube Meister also, that blue light, while it's really cool, all the chrome knobs only have a little black dot on them to indicate where they are. And to figure out where you're set when you're looking at them with that light behind them is really difficult. And I don't like that. I want to be able to look at my amp and know the settings. I love the chicken head style knobs that you see on like the EVH. And a lot of the Vox stuff has those chicken heads on it. Anyway, Fender amps. I have owned the Super Champ. Loved it. I've owned a Hot Rod Deluxe. It was too loud, too big and bassy. You have to get it off the floor before it sounds good. And without a attenuator, it's just a monster. It's too much. It goes from zero to about 1, and then it's too loud. Really loud. But I love the Bass Breaker 15. Had that with an additional cabinet. So I had like a little mini stack, the Bass Breaker. But not being able to switch between the gain stages drove me nuts. You have to click it by hand, and then you're stuck on that gain stage until you do something else. Well, until you change it manually. Why they couldn't, at least, I would have preferred 2 gain stages, and with a switch like that, I'm sure you could have done that easily with a foot switch. But give me one or the other. I don't know. I guess it was too complicated. But the Bass Breaker sounded great. Marshall DSLs, own one right here. The Ignator Tweaker, owned, loved it. The Ignator Rebel, owned. And it needs to be played loud. And I'm selling it. I don't like the idea of heating up 9 tubes every time I play. Retubing 9 tubes, it seems like a nightmare. While you might not have to do them all at once, granted, you wouldn't have to do them all at once, it still has 5 preamp tubes and then the 2 output tubes for the 6L6 and then the EL84. But you're still going to be replacing a lot of tubes. And then the Blackstar HT5, great, and the Blackstar 50, which I really like as well, attenuates down to 5. So those are things I have owned. There's probably some more in there, but of those, and then the Stage Right by Monoprice, I've owned that as well and still have it. Of those, I would say for you beginners that in the number 3 or 4 spot, right in there would be the Boss Katana. The 50 is a great sounding amp. However, the 50 does not have an effects loop. And I think for a beginner, well, for anybody, having the ability to use a looper with an effects loop and practice your tracks, leading over it, the writing process, remembering something, easy storing of something, and then you come back in the afternoon or the next morning, and it's right there in your looper. And if you get a bigger loop station, you've got more tracks you can save, ideas, just the ability to lay something down you're in the mood for, and then practice your scales and your modes over that is so cool. So worth having an effects loop in anything. So you can get the Boss Katana 100, but it's a lot more expensive. Still, the 50 sounds great. And then there'll be like my buddy Justin Walters who says, no, you got to go Fender Mustang. Well, whether you get a Mustang or a Katana or the Valvetronics by Vox, they all do the same thing, modeling type amps. While the Boss isn't called a modeling amp, it is, but it sounds good. I prefer the sound of the Boss Katana to the Valvetronics or the Mustang by Fender. Haven't tried a Marshall Code, but they don't seem to be nearly as possible. All right, so in the 3 spot, Katana. And in the number 2 spot, the Super Champ by Fender. Super cool amp. I think it has a single 66 as an output tube, 12AX7 and a 66. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's got a 10-inch speaker, but it sounds good. The combo is okay. The clean channel is all tube, and then it's got a dirty channel, foot switchable, has a wonderful reverb on it, and some great digital effects, tremolo, delay, some modulation stuff, tons of fun. Every time I plug into a Super Champ, I'm busy for 45 minutes because it's just so much fun. There's several versions to choose from, and a lot of people like the version before the XD, the prior version. However, there was some rumor that the boards were hard to get, so that's kind of why I panicked and sold mine when I did. But super cool amp, real nice. Again, no effects loop, but there's a mod for it that's super easy. If you have soldering experience and are familiar a little bit with circuitry and aren't afraid to do that, it already has a line out, and all you do is separate part of the circuit very close to that line out, 1/4-inch jack, and you put some resistors in and a capacitor or two, and you basically make a line back in to the circuit where the line out comes out. Super easy mod. I think the techs are doing that for about $100, or you can try and do it yourself. There's a lot of pictures online, so easy one to do. So the Fender Super Champ. If you go that route, and tons of fun, and you can go ahead and grow into this. I want you to have an amp that you can grow up with, that doesn't limit you within a few months. Nothing worse than having a crappy sounding amp as you get better and your amp still sounds like blah, yuck. It's not inspiring. So invest in something that's going to grow with you and sound good. Super Champ is great. Now, if you have some extra bucks, I would recommend getting the head and a separate cab, because the Super Champ combos have a tendency to buzz. The combo, the cabinet, buzzes a little bit on your G and your B notes in particular. There are some fixes and reinforcement videos on YouTube where you can add a piece of steel and or aluminum and or replace the baffle, but there's some just like a strip, you can cut a line in the baffle and you put a piece of aluminum like strap or steel strap in there, or a little bit of piece of like step overhang, some step guard. I've watched it and it's available, and it reinforces the combo cabinet enough to where it gets rid of that buzz. But if you can, go with the head and a cab, because in the long run, heads and cabs, I think, are the long-term way to go. Combos are great, but to have a great cab and collect heads is pretty cool too. Like some of the Joyo heads, I haven't tried them, can't speak to them, but they're pretty darn popular. They're small, and they're supposed to sound really good, and they have effects loops, and they're Bluetooth. I mean, stuff's getting crazy good. Alrighty, so Boss Katana, Super Champ by Fender. We're still in the $200 range or so, or less. And the final one, of course, is going to be the Monoprice Stage Right. Love it. Still have it. We'll keep it forever. It rocks. In fact, I put it up against my Black Star a couple weeks ago, and I'm selling the Black Star because the Stage Right takes pedals much better. Not necessarily when it's clean. The Black Star does fine when it's clean, but when the Black Star is in the dirty channel, to try and push it with a pedal is not nearly as easy or as rewarding as it is with the Stage Right. Stage Right, either with some dirt already on it from the amp itself and then pushed with a pedal, sounds great, or using a badass distortion as your dirty tone with the amp set to clean, badass distortion, and then pushed with a Mojo or a TS9 to get a good, nice lead tone. Works great. It has the onboard reverb. It has the effects loop. It's built well. It's just the great package. Monoprice, Stage Right. And you can grab it and take it with you, and it's 15 watts of tube power. It's nice and loud. And no issues of them being unreliable. And if they were, the internet would be on fire with, don't buy this amp, but they're not. They're continuing to gain popularity. $220 was the latest price on the net. 220 to 240. So when I got mine, it was 170, but I had a $20 off coupon code. So my normal price would have been 190. I got free shipping as well, 2-day shipping. So that's still pretty, for a nice tube amp, 15-watt combo. It's great. So get it. All right. So you new guitar players, take my advice. Save whatever you need to get into something that's still at a starter level, but it's going to grow with you and reward your growth as you get better. You don't want to have to buy another amp in 6 months. Alrighty, so old guy jamming out. Let me know what your top 3 picks would be. That'll be kind of fun. But as far as it is for me, it's the Boss Katana, Fender Super Champ, and then that Monoprice. It's dynamite. All right, so we'll see you next time. I got some fun stuff coming up. Student brought in this, and it is, oh my gosh, it's horribly set up. This thing is just a mess. So that's going to be fun to see what we can do with that. And then I ended up with a Wolf Telecaster. Super excited about, and I'll be doing a review of that as well. I'm going to keep it. It's great. It's great. All right, so old guy jamming is out. We'll see you all next time.